welcome back to another episode of Hail Yes, a Michigan football and basketball podcast by the Detroit Free Press. I'm Andrew Burkle, of course, joined by our Michigan beat writer, Tony Garcia, who is coming off a nice, chill, relaxed bye week. Right, Tony?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Just some good old-fashioned, wholesome up north golf and boating on my bachelor party with 15 of my best friends. So it's now Tuesday. I feel like Rod Moore in July. Like I'm 85%. Like I would probably still be questionable for Saturday.
That's actually pretty good, dude.
But better than yesterday and certainly better than Sunday. But we're back. Not quite the rejuvenation bye week and getting the body right like Michigan was focused on doing this week, but we got time for that and only got one of these, so wanted to make sure we had a good time, and there was no shortage of that, so that's good.
Yes. Well, the good news is that we do not have to participate in what's the equivalent to about 10 to 20 car crashes every single Saturday from the body perspective. So we have a little bit built up stamina that these guys might not have. So that's one thing they got working for us for sure. So you mentioned health. Obviously, that's the priority for any team during the bye week. What did Michigan talk about as far as any priorities, anybody specific, anybody that they're monitoring and just their ideals for this week?
Yeah. Well, it's just sort of a general push that Sharon Moore likes to call it. The bye week, he also calls opportunity week, which is a chance for those guys who are just second, like just pushing on the depth chart, but can't find their way to sort of break through. This gives them a chance to do it while resting the players who have been taking the brunt of the snaps, the bulk of the snaps, both sides of the ball throughout the entire season. And certainly that goes specifically for the guys who have been dinged up. Michigan had a pretty lengthy, it feels like all year, they've had a pretty lengthy availability report that they have to provide to the Big Ten 2 hours before every game. This past week against Nebraska, 21 guys on it. 16 who were out. So certainly those guys are getting the R&R, so to speak, and resting and rehabbing and trying to get back towards playing time. And some of those specifically who we asked about, like Gio Al-Hadi, Brady Norton, both starting guards. You got Hogan Hansen, the tight end, who was out week 1, back 2 and 3, and then out week 4. Sharon told us it was something else. I mean, they're never going to get into specifics unless we see like what happens on the field and like where they get dinged up. They're not going to really tell us. The most you'll get is upper body, lower body, but they didn't even want to specify that. So we just know it was something different than what was plaguing him throughout fall camp. You sort of think that's a good thing, using the word good loosely, right? You don't want to exacerbate something that was lingering for months. So maybe it was just a ding or a bruise somewhere else. And then in the secondary, Zeke Berry, Jair Hill. Now, Sharon's mentioned pretty much all of them by name except Zeke, saying that like, yeah, they're all trending in the right direction and he feels pretty good about their status this week. But I mean, it's obvious it's not just those guys, right? Like Bryce Underwood getting a week off of just throwing, right? Like maybe you got receivers catching on the jugs machine more. I mean, not that everyone's not doing something, but it's a lot of prehab, rehab, and walkthroughs, mental reps, game film, that sort of thing, as opposed to the, all right, Tuesday pads, Wednesday pads, Thursday walk, shells, Friday walkthrough. It's so just a chance to get the bodies right, as what Sharon called the 1 quarter mark of the season.
And of course, he's referring to because they have 3 games down, right? So they
4 down.
4 games down. 4 down. So I'm clearly not good at math. 4 down would theoretically be a third of the season for us math people, but he's referring to the college football playoffs. So, and as we say, you know, I listen to Spartan Speak, our other Detroit Free Press LSJ podcast on the college football on this network, and they like to say, you know, drink every time Graham mentions that Western Michigan, they used to cover Western Michigan back in the day. You could probably do the same for every time I mention Michigan's schedule, but it's just such a big storyline in college football these days. And again, going from a really inspiring win on the road at Nebraska right into the bye week. So you have those good vibes rolling all week through the bye, and you have Wisconsin for, sometimes you don't want to be necessarily rusty. You don't have to worry about rust as much against a Wisconsin team who's also struggling. So again, the schedule continues to shape up for Michigan in the right way. But mentioning the Badgers, it's just a program that's just not what we've come to expect from Madison over the last basically our entire lives, Tony. I mean, year in, year out, Wisconsin was one of the most consistent programs in the Big Ten, and it's just not at that level right now. what are you seeing from the Badgers, and what challenges and what weaknesses are they showing from so far from your scouting reports there?
It's not great. It's a lot of really not good. Like, so I do the Big Ten power rankings, for us and for the USA Today Network every week. And it's tough, when I'm spending, I mean, admittedly and publicly admittedly, 7-8 hours on a game day watching Michigan football, writing about Michigan football, thinking about Michigan football. And then maybe like this week is a good example because they'll get to play at noon. Whatever the like Ohio State and Minnesota at night, I'll get to watch that game. Like if they're at noon, I get to watch the night games. If they're at night, I get to watch the noon games. It's really when they're in that 3:30, that mid-afternoon window, maybe I'll get the first hour of the first games and the last hour of the next game. So it makes it tough. But still, even watching as much as I can because I love to, or be it a bye week this week, so you're dialed into Penn State and Oregon and those sorts of games. Wisconsin has looked pretty objectively terrible for the past couple of weeks when they played Alabama, just getting steamrolled. And then this last week, I think was the real eye opener against Maryland, losing 27-10 to Maryland. I thought these two teams were kind of like, I thought they were equivalent in that they're not horrendous tier, but there's not good tier. Wisconsin is closer to Purdue and Northwestern and UCLA than it is that group right above it, which is, I think, maybe like a Rutgers, a Maryland, a Michigan State. Maybe you put, I guess Nebraska might be even one more tier above, but kind of like that bottom middle section. And for Wisconsin, a lot of it stems around the quarterback play, right? So Billy Edwards Jr., who was the quarterback for Maryland prior to this year, just transferred to Wisconsin, and he got dinged up week one. A lot of people thought it might have been an ACL. It was a no contact knee injury. It was just a sprain. They seemed to avoid the worst there. But as he was working his way back, here's what Luke Fickell told reporters about him, because he did start this game against Maryland last week. And then he couldn't even go through the whole game, and they had to pull him in the first half. So Luke Fickell about Billy Edwards Jr. and that revenge game against Maryland, he said, I didn't save him from himself with that game. Him wanting to play, expecting to play, preparing to play. But the truth of the matter is he probably wasn't in a position where he was ready to play. That's where we've got to do a better job. That's why when you ask, where's Billy at health-wise? I don't know right now. Sounds like it would be shocking if he's able to go this week against Michigan. And then I'll get a little more into Danny O'Neil in a second, but that's sort of any team that loses their starting quarterback that already was projected 5.5 wins and they're over under. What's that going to do, right?
Yeah, it's not a great situation there right now. And you rarely see coaches, especially old school guys like Fickell, be that honest about where they're standing with a guy and saying, I don't know, we don't know about his status. If it's even remotely positive, it's usually some variation of what Sharon says, where it's like moving in the right direction, getting better every week, something like that. So it's pretty jarring to hear stuff like that, right? And then, like you said, it's a 5.5 win projected team who lost their quarterback. So it's messy. It's just not the Wisconsin type of football you expect to see either. They're still going more air raid and just complete inability to run the ball. It's a program that feels like it doesn't have a lot of direction right now, which is just stunning to say for a team that for, like I mentioned, darn near 30 years felt like had constant direction and an unimpeachable brand.
They were the model of consistency. Ohio State, and really actually for much of those 20 years, Michigan was not the Michigan that it was, right? Like Michigan had a down 8 years during Wisconsin's 20-year heyday. I would say the only more consistent program in the Big Ten, especially when it was the Big Ten as we knew it before it's at its current bastardized form. Not that it's not fun, but it's just not the Big Ten we all grew up with. I would say Ohio State was the only team that was more consistent. You could even argue Wisconsin was above Penn State. And there are programs that punched up during that time. Michigan wasn't punching up. They were always very good, but Wisconsin was certainly on that level. There was a 8 to almost 10-year stretch where Michigan State was on that level, and they were trading blows with Wisconsin. But nobody year in, year out, were you penciling in for 9 wins a year, maybe Michigan, and then Ohio State as well. And you mentioned it. The run game is what was just so shocking. Melvin Gordon, Monty Ball, James White. I mean, they had NFL running backs on a turnstile coming out of that place. And now, I mean, they are one of the worst rushing attacks in the power conferences. They've run 150 times for 471 yards. That is 3.1 yards per rush. They have 4 rushing touchdowns all year. That's 1 per game. And that's including games against Miami, Ohio, and Middle Tennessee State. I mean, they literally can't get anything going. Their leading rusher, Dylan Jones, 34 carries, 154 yards. That's 4.4 yards per carry. And that's their best ball carrier. And that is like, as the kids say, mid. That is the definition of mid. And that's your best guy, which obviously speaks to the offensive line. I mean, there's going to be someone who would break out more if your offensive line is not really putrid. And in a way, I mean, I guess not even in a way, because I mean, Miami, Ohio and Middle Tennessee State are games you're never going to lose. And Alabama and Maryland, I mean, Alabama, you can give them a pass, but Maryland was really like short of the tipping point barometer game. Like if they were going to have any pulse this season, that was the one they had to have at home. And they just got their doors blown off. So it's been tough. And then when you factor in their quarterback, Danny O'Neal, the San Diego State transfer, who has actually been okay, especially for a backup. He's 60 of 85. That's 70.6% completions for 640 yards with 5 touchdowns. But the issue is he has 5 interceptions. He's thrown 25 incompletions and 5 of them have gone to the other team. You can't have 5 picks and 85 throws. That's like a 7% interception rate. And I mean, but that also speaks to, if you don't have a run game to support you and people know you are going to be throwing the ball, it makes it all the more difficult. And so, it's just so far from anything we knew Wisconsin to be for a number of years.
Just want to run through some numbers here. O'Neal had 1 interception against Maryland, 2 against Alabama, 1 against Middle Tennessee, and 1 against Miami, Ohio. So that's all 4 games he's played. He's had at least 1 interception. So it wasn't like they all came in bundles or anything like that. Like he had 3 or 4 against Alabama or something like that, right? He's been consistently inconsistent. Then I wanted to go back to 1996 for Wisconsin. That's when I was born, 1996. So almost 30 years ago. 8 wins, 11 wins, 10 wins, 9 wins. They had a down year, 5 wins, 8, 7, 9, 10, 12, 9, 7, 10, 11, 11, 8, 9, 11, 10, 11, 11, 13. It's just like unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
Like that's so the model of consistency, which people in Ann Arbor, of anybody, should know it's not easy to necessarily turn that over, especially coach to coach, right? Like you went from Lloyd Carr to Rich Rod to Brady Hoke, and it just is, it's hard to find that consistency, right? And so Wisconsin was able to do that for so long, and it just seemed to make so much sense that Luke Fickell would be that next guy, right? Like Paul Chryst, for whatever reason, kind of just took his eye off the ball and lost a lot of momentum the program had. And it felt like such a perfect hire at the right time with Fickell. But yeah, it's interesting to see what's happened there. And I don't really have any exact reason why it has. But as far as what to expect for this game, is there any types of matchups that Michigan might have to worry about against this Wisconsin team?
If there's one that you point to, it is, and I think this is really more of what they call a statistical anomaly. Like I think they've just been had through the air and they played a couple of really bad teams on offense. But technically, the Badgers have the number 1 ranked rushing defense in the nation. And so that is notable through a month of the season. But Michigan is number 8 in the country running the ball at more than 250 yards per game, right? So sort of an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, although I don't actually believe that one of those is that. I think the numbers just say it is.
We're going to hear that so much on the broadcast. I mean, you'll be at the game, so you won't notice it, but you just know on that, and Michigan's rushing attack going against the top-ranked rushing defense in the you just know they're going to use it as a way to hype this game up, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, on a Fox Big Noon kickoff too, no less. Yeah, I mean, it's just, that's the free square on the bingo board of everything that's going to be said. That's everything that's going to be said. I mean, in last week, last game, because they obviously had a bye last week, Nebraska was the number 1 ranked passing defense in the league. And one thing I thought was interesting was Michigan said, we are going to win in our way. Like, we are going to find our path to victory. We don't care if they're great against the pass, if they're great against the rush. We're going to do, like, that may influence like how we think that we can beat them, but we're going to attack them in the way that we feel gives us the best chance to win, right? It's not like we're going to try to prove something like, oh, we got the best run game and you got the best run defense. We are absolutely going to have to run the rock. If Michigan thinks like, hey, this run defense actually is legit, but they can be had through the air, there's a chance that Bryce throws for 250, right? But I'm thinking this is going to be kind of a classic 200-200 Michigan game where they just move it in both ways. And Justice Haynes has like 150 more yards or 100 some more yards than Wisconsin's entire team combined, and 2 more touchdowns. It's not close. And that's before you factor in Jordan Marshall's getting going. That's before you factor in Bryce Underwood's getting going.
I think I'm going to be watching this week to see if Haynes can bust another one of those 50+ yard runs, or if they're going to be more consistent. Like, if I was a Michigan coach or a Michigan fan, I'd be looking for 15-yard runs from Haynes, 20-yard runs, a little bit more consistent, and Marshall as well, obviously. Just a little bit more consistent chunk yardage against in a game where you really have an opportunity to prove yourself, right? I think that's something to watch for.
Do you want to know my new working theory?
Please.
So those like the classic 15 and 20 yard chunk runs, a chunk run for Justice Haynes, I think is 7 to 10, because once he's at 10, he's at the second level and this dude is gone. Like, people are not hawking him. You know what I mean?
He's making guys miss right in that 7 to 10 yard range is where he's made that huge play. Now, you would think that considering that has been, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but how many rushing yards, and a huge percentage of those are on big chunk plays, right? So I think that once teams start factoring in on that, like, hey, we can't have 2 guys, one guy in the hole and then it's gone, right? Like, you got a game plan. Teams are going to start game planning around that to a certain degree, right? And trying to take that away. But of course, easier said than done.
265, I believe, of his rushing yards have come on 4 carries, 75 yards, 59 yards, 56 yards. But even if you take away 265, I'm doing some live math here, that's this is trouble. 277 that's left, maybe? No, 282 that's left, right around there. 272? 272. I think 272 is the final answer. So 62 carries, 272 yards for 62 carries. That's still 4.4 yards per carry. And that, as we said, is middle of the pack. And but you can't take away, but 4 massive home runs.
You're right. You can't take it out. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so even if you took away his 4, like a nation leading 4 carries of 50 yards or more, right? Like, so he is doing that at a level nobody else is. And even if you negated every positive thing he had done, it's still an average, like he's still an average running back, or better than anything Wisconsin has. And that's what he does best.
Didn't he have more chunk plays against Nebraska? I feel like they were moving the ball a little more consistently on the ground against Nebraska than any other game. Obviously it's a different competition level, right? So compared to Central and New Mexico, right? And Oklahoma was tough road the whole way. So,
yeah. But he still broke one for 75 in that one too.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So until we see otherwise, you have to believe that. I said this last week. Until you see otherwise, you have to think that it's going to keep happening, especially with the scheme. But obviously, it's something that off of bye week teams are going to start focusing in on for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Last Michigan bye week and was pre-Wisconsin thought before we get to our picks. As part of that, what I mentioned early on in the increased competition and the opportunity week, this is a week to look for the wide receivers. Michigan has struggled. You can read the piece I just wrote on freep.com this morning about some of their drop issues. So 11 drops as a team. That is tied for the second most in the Big Ten. Now, Maryland is clearing the field. Maryland has 17, but Michigan and Iowa, both with 11 through 4 games, is a lot. And 2 of those culprits are 2 of the 3 starting wide receivers, not named Donovan McCulley. It's Samaj Morgan, who has 4. It's Channing Goodwin, who has 4. And so they are both, unfortunately, bottom 5 in the nation, like among 5 tied players with 4 drops or more. And perhaps worse yet, Goodwin's drop rate is 36.4%. Samaj is 26.7%. There are 4 players with 5 drops or more, but all of their drop rates are lower, meaning they are getting targeted more. And so there's more opportunity for drops. And I mean, that's not that they don't have problems, but nobody has as many drops in as few targets as these two. And so, I mean, you got to find someone who's going to catch the ball. And it's not that these guys haven't both made plays, because they have at times, but they need more consistency. I would not be surprised at all if Andrew Marsh, the true freshman, doesn't start to get some run here real soon. And maybe even in Kendrick Bell. That could be another guy. But Marsh would be my bet. He is, outside of Donovan McCulley, he is the most talented, like just raw talent wide receiver in this room. He had a brutal week 1.
He looks the part.
Yeah, he does. Coming off the bus, he looks the part. And he moves quick. He had a brutal week 1 with a fumble on special teams that I think really probably messed with his mental. But this is a perfect opportunity. Not only is there an opportunity for a reset and chance for him to get those reps in practice, but they're looking for a guy, right? If it's even close in practice, you figure it's like, let's give the 4-star, who's the highest rated wide receiver recruit since Donovan Peoples-Jones, let's give him a chance. You know what I mean? And him and Underwood both coming in the same class together, that's chemistry for years to come. And so, I mean, not that Samaj is a junior and he doesn't have NFL written on him, so he'll be back next year, assuming not portaling or something. Goodwin, true freshman. So obviously there's time with everybody, but I would be looking to get Andrew Marsh going. That's just me.
We shall see. Wide receivers can continue to be a position that we monitor for Michigan football over the last season and a half here, as Michigan is trying to take that next step, and the wide receivers feel like a huge piece of that in their growth period here between the end of the Harbaugh era and the start of the Sharon Moore era. So, all right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back with some picks, including our prediction for the Michigan and Wisconsin game on the other side of the break. All right, welcome back, everyone. And before I say another word, I'm going to read the standings so that Tony doesn't give me a hard time about forgetting about it, as I tend to do way too frequently. So through 5 weeks and 4 Michigan games now, Tony is posting an impressive 15-10 record. Golf clap for Tony on that one. That's pretty good, especially when you're picking these games. They all feel like it could go at a coin flip here. And I worked my way up to 12-13. Both of us went 3-2 last week. Just for a quick review, Illinois, USC. We both had Illinois. Last week, I had LSU. You had Ole Miss. Good call by you. Shorting Brian Kelly whenever you can. I had Ohio State. You had Washington. That one went my way. We both had Oregon and both had Georgia, so we split those. So, all right. Is that a good enough recap for you, Tony?
That was a fantastic recap. That Washington pick was terrible. That was my second worst of the year.
That Ohio State defense. Whew.
Yeah. Sometimes you try to pick a spot, and that felt like a spot. Swing and a miss. Done that before. We'll do it again.
As we all will. So we're going to start with Michigan and Wisconsin. Sometimes we like to save the Wolverines for last, but this year we've been going kind of in order of the game and the kickoff times. And Michigan is on big noon on Fox, as they so often seem to be. A 16.5-point favorite over Wisconsin. Tony, I'm sure you're picking the Wolverines to win this game, but give me a little bit of why you think it will go a certain way, and also the spread pick.
Yeah, I think so. This is the biggest number that Michigan would have to cover this year, other than Central Michigan, like biggest over a functional team. I guess they were...
What was New Mexico?
They were 34.5-point favorites or something against New Mexico.
Let's just say this. Probably the biggest Big Ten spread they'll see this year. Probably the biggest Big Ten spread.
Yeah. Well, they also got Purdue. They also got Northwestern, but it'll be right around there.
True. I guess, yeah, we'll see what they do, right? Well, if those guys show any signs of life.
Against a team with a name brand that like an actual name brand, I mean, it's just shocking to see this number next to it, but I'm taking Michigan to cover in case the first part of this podcast sell was not hard enough. I felt like I was kind of giving away where I was going. I just don't see what Wisconsin is going to be able to do. If you are a one-dimensional offense going against Michigan, you are dead and buried on arrival. I mean, that's pretty much just been the way it works. Their front seven has been ferocious at getting after the pass rusher. Now with Jayshon Barham on the edge, they are really creating problems. And like you said, O'Neal has a pick. We're throwing at least one pick in every game. Michigan has taken away at least one pick in every game. They have 6 interceptions on defense from every level of the field, whether it's Jair Hill, whether it's Cole Sullivan with a couple, whether it's TJ Guy on the edge getting a batted ball and bringing it down. They are just generating turnovers. 8 they've generated so far through 4 games, which is just a fantastic clip. And I don't believe that Wisconsin's run defense, I think it's probably good, but I don't think it's great. I just don't. They don't have the same athletes that they used to. Now, Mike Tressel, the defensive coordinator, has proven to be able to lead some decent defenses. He often runs sort of like that 3-3-5, but I'm just not buying this Wisconsin defense being able to, maybe they'll slow Michigan down, but I still think I don't see Michigan scoring less than 27, maybe 30. And I don't know how Wisconsin gets past 10 in this game. I really don't. So even if it's 27-10, which is the exact same number that Maryland put up on them last week, and I think Michigan, you can't just transitive property it like that, but Maryland did that to them on the road. Michigan is now at home. I think this is a rout. I think this is a legitimate route. Something like 34-9. Just a beat down all the way around.
I certainly could see that. I'm still going to, first of all, Michigan wins. They win comfortably. The game's never close. But I think that, in a points competition and a race for points here against you, I think it's worth the calculated risk to take the 17 or 16 and a half points and help Michigan can't get over that 17-point hump. And I think 27-10 is kind of the blueprint for this game with Maryland last week. I feel like it could be in that ballpark somewhere. And Wisconsin, first of all, this is an absolute season on the line for a momentum type situation for Wisconsin. Even if you figure they're going to lose, they can't come out and look totally flat, right? They have to come out with some energy, right? So maybe they buy themselves enough of wiggle room. So when Michigan does start to squeeze the life out of them towards the end of the game, they have some wiggle room to play with. And I just think 16 and a half is a lot of points. So I'm going to take a chance there, knowing that the blowout is absolutely possible, because it looks like that could easily be the case, but I think it's worth the calculated risk. Let's move on to Vanderbilt, Alabama. I'm going to switch it up on you on this one. I'm going to go first. I think Vanderbilt is good. They really kicked South Carolina's you-know-what, and that was a statement. South Carolina was a team that a lot of people had circled, a lot of people had their eyes on this year, and Vandy just took care of them, right? So I think Vanderbilt is just underrated. Everyone's going to be on Alabama this week as a spot of they're coming off the Georgia win. They obviously are looking for revenge from last year when Vanderbilt upset them with one of the biggest upsets in college football history, dragged the goalpost all the way down to Broadway Street down there. So it's going to be a game that everyone's going to be thinking, oh, this is the Alabama spot. But this is not Nick Saban's program. This is Kalen DeBoer. And while DeBoer has already shown some of the height of where Saban met as far as beating Georgia twice now, including on the road last week, that's as impressive as anything Nick Saban did in an individual game, right? Well, he's also shown that his program can have lapses of focus. And I think this has that written all over it here for Vanderbilt. So I'm going to take the 10.5 points for Vandy on the road at Alabama.
I like it. I'm seeing this the same way, and maybe it'll be shame on me for fading Alabama twice in a row. But there are famous coaches who say you can only get your team to get up for so many games. And coming off a road win at Georgia, even if you have remember what they did to you last year thing, it still feels like it's Vanderbilt, right? It doesn't feel like it's like the dog water Vanderbilt that we've come to know, but it's just not a big, it's like Illinois in the Big Ten, right? It's like, is this really a good team? I know they have a good record and I know they've been kind of good for a few years, but come on, it's still Illinois, right? That's how some teams feel, right, wrong, or indifferent. And, Diego Pavia, I think Alabama wins this game, but should Vanderbilt win this game, Diego Pavia will be on the Heisman short list. You know what I mean? He could
100%.
He could really start to make some noise and make some hay. And after this, it's not like Alabama's schedule gets easier. Their next games at Missouri, home Tennessee, at South Carolina, home LSU, home Oklahoma, and then they finish the season after the classic non-com poo-poo SEC game second to last week in the Iron Bowl at Auburn. That is a legitimate gauntlet. And how many can you do in a row? And is it 10.5, 11.5?
10.5, yeah.
10.5. Okay, I kind of wish it was 11.5, but still, that's over a touchdown and a field goal. I think it'll probably be. This feels like just a classic Vegas spot where it's 10 or 11, but I think Vanderbilt can cover this number. I do.
Me too. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Alabama schedule. As you were saying that, I already had the Vandy one pulled up over here. Anyone who wants to tell me the Big Ten is the better conference, like, let's go. Let's debate right now because it's not even close. You just said Alabama schedule. Like, wow, it can't get tougher than that, right? Well, Vandy has Alabama this week. Then they have, so they're at Alabama, home for LSU, home for Missouri, at Texas, Auburn, who is not, they're no walk in the park. I mean, they have a really good defense, Kentucky, and then at Tennessee to finish the season. Good Lord. Like, there's no freebies on there, right? Like, they could be a good team and lose the rest of these games.
And then you think about Michigan, and this is just using Michigan's schedule as the example. Northwestern, Purdue, Maryland, and Wisconsin are all on this schedule. That is 4.
And Michigan State.
Oh yeah. And Michigan State. That's 5.
Who knows what to expect with that one?
Washington, who is good, not great. It's just, and even USC. Like, how good is USC really?
If USC was on that schedule, it'd be the easiest game probably besides Kentucky and maybe Auburn. I mean, if Auburn and USC played tomorrow on a neutral site, who do you think's favored? It's probably in the somewhere between 3 to 5 point range either way, right? They're roughly similar. And that's the second easiest game remaining on Vanderbilt's schedule, right? It's just like this year, it's just not even close.
And the second toughest remaining on Michigan's.
Right. That's enough schedule Michigan football talk for this week. I think we covered it and we're going to continue to cover because it's the story this year with this team. Because if Michigan had last year's schedule, which, fair enough to the Big Ten, Michigan's schedule last year was a lot tougher than this year's schedule, right? It's not even a competition. And so if you had that last year's schedule, it's a completely different narrative around this team, but it's just not. So, okay, let's move on. Texas is a 6.5 point favorite at Florida. And my first takeaway was only 6.5. It feels like that's begging you to bet on Texas in a way, right?
It is, which is why I will not be taking the cheese. I mean, Florida last year, it felt like they were fighting for Billy Napier's job pretty much every week. And he could have the hottest seat in America right now, especially after that loss to USF, after DJ Lagway threw 5 picks against LSU. And it's like, oh, it's Texas. They're finding their footing. Yeah, they lost to Ohio State week 1, but now they've kind of been rolling. I mean, they've been rolling against who, right? Like, it's just, they have played a nobody schedule. Now, I'm sure, as we know, they will have them coming up, but San Jose State, UTEP, Sam Houston, there's just no meat on that bone. And while Florida has looked bad in games against some tough competition that it's played, it hung in a little bit against Miami, right? It hung in until the fourth quarter against LSU. And so I think they're just a little more battle tested right now. The game is in the swamp and they got to fight for their lives. And so maybe they lose it. But maybe it's one of those, I'll call it again, maybe it's an OT. Once it goes to that 2-point conversion thing, you're good. Or if you score a field goal first, you're in the clear, at least on the cover. And so I just think I've faded Florida a couple times this year. Well, actually, I think we only did one on the pod. The other one we just discussed off air. But I'm gonna roll with the Gators this time.
Florida has scored 7 points in the second half against USF, 0 points in the second half against LSU, and 7 points in the second half against Miami. I mean, this is just not a good second half team and not a good offense. I think that Florida keeps it close as they have pretty much in all these games so far, except for Miami 26-7. Hurricanes score 13 points in the fourth quarter. That's all you need from Texas. I mean, Texas doesn't have to crush them here. If they get some late scores, and Florida's offense kind of falls apart in the second half as it has lately, that's going to be enough. 6.5 is not a huge number. Now, if this was 7 or 7.5, I'm probably on Florida, to be honest with you. But I think that 6.5 is just enough to convince me that, like, you know what, Texas is, if I'm picking this game straight up, I'm probably picking Texas. And I think that they have enough horses to get over that and score late to steal the cover. All right. Michigan State at Nebraska, 2 teams that Michigan probably has been following closely so far this year. Spartans are 11.5 point underdogs on the road at Nebraska, a team that Michigan just beat straight up pretty easily. So who do you like in this one, Tony?
Yeah, I'm sure this is going to be the classic overcompensation after getting something wrong, but USC was favored by 17.5 against Michigan State. Normally I would have taken that as the backdoor cover, but their defense had just looked so terrible I didn't think that the offense, I mean, even if the offense was putting up points, I didn't think it was going to be enough. And sure enough, it was a backdoor cover. Now it came on like a 70-yard touchdown with a couple minutes left, but there's no pictures when you're sending your slip into the teller at the casino, right? So I'm going to give Michigan State the benefit of the doubt on this one and say that maybe they can cover in that sort of fashion. I'm not super sold on Nebraska. Michigan, I mean, in the same way Oklahoma really took it to Michigan in week 2 and the score didn't tell the final story, that's what Michigan did to Nebraska in week 4. I mean, they gifted them a Hail Mary touchdown. They gifted them a stupid penalty that led to points, 3 more points, and then they were up 10 and just took their foot off the gas and just tried to sort of milk clock until the end, and Nebraska got a late touchdown. It can't fully work like that, but that's sort of how they got 17 of those 27 points. And so I'm just really not sold on Nebraska, I think. And then the last point would be Michigan State's best game of their year last year by far was coming off that bye week. And when they beat Iowa, I don't know if that was at home or away. I assume since it was Iowa, it was probably at home. But I remember that led into into this game against Michigan, and Michigan looked terrible coming off their bye. And that's why so many people last year were on Michigan State going into that rivalry game. And then obviously, of course, Michigan won. And so maybe they have some bye week juice. Maybe their offense is just good enough to outscore a 12-point decision, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt one time.
There's 2 reasons I'm on the same side as you here. First of all, you stole my point about Iowa. It's obviously, it's well out there, but they looked really dialed in against Iowa last year. Like they were, attention to detail was strong. It seemed like they were really found something in that game. So in the short sample size we have, and say what you want about this Michigan State program, but I think they pride themselves on not necessarily being like a rah team, but more so like intellect and studying themselves and looking inward. And I think that this is something that they're going to try to really own, like Andy Reid's bye week record in the NFL, right? Like, hey, this is something we can really take care of it and really know ourselves. The other reason is that Dylan Raiola holds the ball for an hour every time he drops back. And I think that Michigan State, the one thing that they can't do is get to the passer or get to the quarterback. And that pass rush is going to have opportunities against a quarterback who holds the ball too long and sometimes is not exactly taking advantage of some of the holes that are in that defense through carelessness or inaccuracy, right? So I think that this is not a bad matchup for Michigan State, plus the bye, and I think it's a big spot for the Spartans coming off a disappointing trip to LA. So I like Michigan State here as well.
Are you sure that program has any pride? That is quite the word to use for the.
I said prides itself. I didn't say they have pride.
Oh, there you go. No, okay, there you go. But that still feels like a stretch to me. I don't know that you're probably right, especially because you're in tune with Solari. It's your job to edit both of us and to be the knowledgeable all around Big Ten college football guy. From what I've seen, they are woof.
No, the defense is really problematic right now.
They have a potent offense.
The offense looks pretty good. And the other thing that I would point to is that as far as the bye week is the communication on Michigan State's defense has been among the worst I've ever seen. I mean, constant busted plays, like guys just running wide open. Linebacker's head turned the wrong way for the audio offense, or for the audio audience. I turn my head as my voice turns the other way. Linebackers turn completely the opposite way as wide receivers are running wide open. I mean, like the only thing you can say about that is if you're trying to look at the absolute best case scenario is that maybe you work out some of that communication stuff because that's some low hanging fruit there, man. I mean, even if you give up one of those instead of like 5 of those, right? It's like, that's a huge difference. So that's another thing that Michigan State is obviously going to have to work on this week. But I like the spot for them. I don't think they're very good, but I think this is a game that they can at least cover. Last but not least, a rivalry game in the Gator State as Florida State host Miami. Hurricanes continue to impress, continue to shoot up the rankings. Are 4.5 point favorite on the road against Florida State, coming off a tough loss to Virginia. Tony, wrap us up. Who do you think?
Yeah, felt like that. I mean, that was a trap game clearly last week against Virginia. Look ahead spot, and the Noles got nipped. If anything, maybe it sort of helps against Miami, right? Like you're not feeling invincible. You're feeling like, for any outside chance we had in terms of perception coming into this season to make the college football playoff, we gotta have this one. Otherwise, even running the table against the rest of the week, ACC might not do it. And so I don't know that they get it done all the way. But 4.5 is enough points where I will take Florida State and just keep it inside a field goal. And then some of us are going home happy. You might not be, but those of us who took you with the points are.
Yeah, I mean, for example, your fiance might not be going home happy, which is to lose by a field goal. Well, we'll take it, right?
A win's a win.
I'm going with the Hurricanes. I just think that they're the better team. Florida State has been a program that has operated best with confidence over the last few years. Obviously, they had that awesome win over Alabama. Looked like things are going their way. And it just feels like when things go wrong, they haven't necessarily dealt with adversity the best. So I think that confidence knocked down a ring there. And I think the Hurricanes take care of business as a 4.5 point favorite and cover that spread on a classic feeling Florida State Miami game where it feels like both teams are actually, how many times did we fake this game and pretended like we cared, right? This is an actual one that does matter, especially in the not so great ACC.
Yep. No, I mean, these are the two best teams in the ACC, with Clemson being as fraudulent as it gets. So it's fun. College football is at its best when Florida State and Miami are dope swag programs, and they feel like they got the juice right now.
No doubt. All right, man. We'll watch all these games, monitor them, try to, keep an eye on them the best we can. And of course, we've got Michigan hosting Wisconsin for a big new kickoff. I'm guessing you're glad to have a home noon game, right, Tony?
I could not be happier. This is my favorite situation. I am so pumped. Let's go big noon.
Yes, it should be. I'm happy for you. Now, if the Tigers somehow beat Cleveland and get in there and play Saturday, and then we have a Michigan State game on Saturday and a Michigan game on Saturday and a Tigers playoff game on Saturday, it's gonna be a busy day. But it's what we do it for. This is the best time of the year.
What are you saying? You want the Tigers to lose so that doesn't have to happen?
I'm not saying anything. I don't have an official opinion on the matter, but if from a work standpoint, it's going to be a lot busier if all three things are going on at once. But I mean, it's also what you live for, right? So going to be a busy weekend no matter what, but maybe slightly busier if the Tigers, we're recording this on Tuesday. They play their first game Tuesday. So they should not at least be eliminated by the time you guys hear this. But yeah, it's going to be a busy weekend, of course, starting with the Wolverines and the Badgers. So with that, thank you to everybody who makes this podcast possible. Robin Chan, the editor of the podcast, Nicole Avery-Nichols, our editor-in-chief, and the sports editor, Bill Bradley. Thank you to everyone who listens and made it this far. We really appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you guys next week after a Michigan and Wisconsin game. We'll see you then.